Hey, so I'm going to kick this off. I just want to welcome everyone to another collaborative AI accelerator series. Today we're going to go for from fear to flourishing, guiding institutions through AI transformation with my good friend Sarah Gibson out at Lipscomb University. Sarah, we're lucky to have you here. Sarah teaches me something every day, and I kind of want to give a little introduction to her, and then we can kind of just jump into this. Feel free to ask questions in the chat, and I can respond while Sarah's presenting. Uh, so Sarah Gibson is the director of School of Communication and Center for Digital Media Ethics at Lipscomb University. And Sarah is an educator and a media professional from Albany, Texas. As she mentioned, there sounds like there's a lot of folks. I probably pronounced that wrong. I apologize. But she's a graduate of Abilene Christian University, where she obtained her BS in electronic media, and the University of North Texas, earning an MFA in radio, television, and film. Her expertise spans documentary production, video editing, new media production, design thinking, podcasting, and interactive storytelling. She's also an adept in data and investigative journalism, web and app development, and one more thing to that list, an AI integration specialist. Sarah is one of the best to ever do it that I've really encountered, so I'm really excited to let her jump in. And yes, Sarah, thank you for being here. Everyone else, thank you so much for showing up. So I'll stop sharing.
Fantastic. Thanks. I'm going to share my screen, so give me a minute to get it up here and to start the slideshow. And then I want to pull up the chat again so I can see you guys. I am so excited to have you here and to share this with you. This is really the first time that we are publicly sharing this Fear to Flourishing framework. And so some things are a little bit more set in stone than others, but I really want to give you a look behind the curtain of what we're doing and how we're doing it, and kind of where we are and what we're thinking about, and talk to you about things that we are in the midst of doing currently. And we have really lucked out at Lipscomb, and I'm super excited to share with you everything that we're doing. So feel free to ask questions in the chat, and I will answer them, and then we'll go through this, and we'll have time for Q&A at the end as well. So greetings from Nashville, Tennessee. I am an Abilene native, but I am currently in Nashville, and it's a beautiful day here, and a beautiful day to share this stuff with you. This framework that we are talking through really explores not only a mindset shift in your institution, but also kind of the step-by-step roadmap in how you get your faculty and your staff and your students to come alongside you, and integrate AI in new and exciting ways. So there we go. There, I got to learn how to change the slides. So here's what we are going to do today. We'll go through this roadmap, and kind of look at some of the things that we at Lipscomb are looking at and that we did, and how we got our faculty from where we were about a year ago to where we are now. And it's a huge transformation, and it's actually super exciting. And I've kind of broken it up into four parts. So how do you rewire your institution, and rewire the way that you think about AI? The second would be how you lay the foundation, and what kind of infrastructure do you need to adopt AI at your institution. The third is change management doesn't really work for this. So what is a new way, a new roadmap to kind of look at AI going forward? And then the fourth, we call it discerning innovation. And that's really how to be more proactive than reactive. And that is where we are. And we actually launched pieces of that this week, which is really exciting to share with you what that looks like. So a little bit about Lipscomb, just to kind of orient you so you kind of understand where we are. We're not a big school. We're about 3,000 undergrad. We're located in Nashville, Tennessee. We are a private faith-based, but we are a very diverse school. We have a lot of students represented. And so we're kind of in this heart of Nashville. And we were always founded to be a liberal arts institution. And so we feel and act more like a teaching institution, although we did reach R3 status. So we're not the big people out there doing this. We're really a small community who is thinking about how to do this intentionally and what the impact it will have on our community going forward. And I want to define flourishing because we talk about fear to flourishing. So what does it mean to flourish? these are kind of the 6 dimensions of flourishing that are out there. And when we talk about flourishing with AI, we're talking about how we can do this for the institution and for the individual. And so I don't think we've met all of these domains. You can't in a year. But as we start to think about strategically rolling out AI, these are the 6 domains that are really kind of leading us and thinking about how AI can help us navigate this idea of what flourishing looks like for the institution and for the individual as well. So let's start in with the 4 parts of integration that we are kind of looking at going forward. And I wonder if you guys in the chat might be able to put one word that represents how you feel about AI. You won't offend me. That's what I tell people all the time. But if what are your feelings towards AI currently? And curious, excited, fantastic. We all have a lot of emotions around AI. And if you're here, you're probably somebody who is more on the early adoption, overwhelmed. That's fantastic. Because that is where a lot of the faculty are. And so, if we're going to rewire the institution for AI, how do we do that? And how do we take all of those emotional factors out threatened? That is really interesting. I would love to unpack that more with you. Um, but how do we take all these emotions, right? And how do we unpack them and then rewire our institution in our own minds so that we start adopting AI in new and exciting ways? And so when we look at that, um, it's not just a roadmap, it's really a mindset shift as well. But I want to talk about the mindset shift for just a minute, and then we'll get into the roadmap part. AI is a fundamental shift in the way that we do business, in the way that we do education, in the way that we acquire knowledge, in the way that we assess our students, the way that we do our policies, the way that we, what it means to be a creator, because I'm in the creative space. It is a fundamental shift in the way that we do everything. And that's what's so scary about it. It's not like when we adopted the internet and it was just, oh, the knowledge is now on my computer and I can search it and that's pretty cool. It is a complete shift in what it means to co-create with technology. And that's why it is really important that you approach this in a way that grounds what you do in what you are currently doing and grounds your faculty and your students and gives them guardrails within that, because we've got to shift our mindset towards AI at the same time we're trying to integrate it. It's more than a tool. I tell my faculty all the time, if you are using it to generate, if you are only generating content, you miss the entire point. It's an iterator more than it's a generator. So more than just giving it something and saying, generate for me, it is really good at ideas. And the power of it lies in that ability to iterate alongside you and create alongside you. And that's where that mindset shift really kind of takes hold. So currently, I've talked to a lot of universities, and currently there's 3 approaches to AI that these universities are taking. One path is complete ignoring it, like it doesn't exist. And a lot of people often say that like those institutions have 3 to 5 years to get on board or to be no more, which is really scary in the long run. The other one is to impose, and I think that's where a lot of institutions are. So how do I control and regulate it? Like, how do I go about imposing rules and regulations to it? And that may be where a lot of you are. And I would argue to you that that's not where you want to stay, that it's a negative approach. And when we're talking about a mindset shift, we've got to shift from negative to positive. The AI isn't something to control, but if you let go of that, and there are ways to do that, then you move into this interesting space where you can actually innovate. And in the past year at Lipscomb, that's what we've done. It's kind of gone from the impose and wanting to control to innovate. And so this is the first of 3 critical spaces that I would argue to you that you need to be thinking about. The first one is, how do I go from restrictive thinking to transformative thinking? So how do I take this idea that AI is a cheating tool? It's a way to cut out the human element and go into more transformative, which really says, hey, like AI is something super empowering. It can actually bring equity into my classroom. It can help me think deeper. And that is the power of AI. But that jump from restrictive to transformative thinking is huge and it takes a lot of work. This isn't easy. For us, the catalyst for that at Lipscomb happened probably in August. And it was this book called Teaching with AI by Jose Bowen. And if you have not read this book, you need to read this book. We bought it for all the faculty, and we had Jose Bowen come and speak. And that was the catalyst for a lot of faculty, where they all of a sudden said, oh, like this is not a cheating tool. This is actually an opportunity. And I can grab hold of that opportunity and kind of take off with it. And I will tell you that your adopters, there is no look at what an adopter looks like. It's your old faculty, it's your young faculty, it's your faculty in between, it's your new faculty, it's your long timers. It does it is more personal towards the way that they approach AI as to when they will adopt or not. And it's a fantastic book. The other book that I will tell you is that is Hope Circuits. And I keep saying this is the best book about AI that has absolutely nothing to do with AI. They don't mention AI at once. So if you have someone who is an AI resistor, Hope Circuits is a great book for them. The the fundamental idea of this book is that education is broken. And I think we all understand this after COVID. Like the educational system is broken. So AI, a lot of the fear about AI is not the threat of AI, it is the threat of I have a broken educational system and AI has brought that forward where I can see it and now what do I do with it? Students have always been cheating. I mean, that's been a problem. It has grown with COVID. So AI is not new. Cheating with AI is just a different type of cheating that we've seen. And Hope Circuit says if we're going to change education, we have to change it at the fundamental level, and we have to do that with hope, that we can't live in despair. But it also talks about um, living in grief and working through your grief and how important that is. And I think Hope Circuits is a great recommendation. And I would recommend that as you start to think about change, because the change that we're looking at with AI is not just about AI, it's about the whole system. And how do I change education altogether within that? So let's look at part two. So we've got that first part that just kind of looks at where we are and how you change from that we need to have a catalyst that changes us from restrictive to transformative thinking. Part two is how do you lay that foundation? What does that look like? There's some infrastructure that you have to move forward. And I think of it as 5 Ps: principles, people, policies, processes, and partnerships. And a lot of people want to jump to the policy first, and that is not where you start. You start with the principles and the people. That's like the number one thing. So if you are just getting started in the conversation at your institution, you need to be thinking about how do we root this in the principles and what are the key players and the people that can help us do that. And once you do that, you move to policies. So we started our task force about a year ago, and we really started jumping on policies this semester. So that's a long time of just thinking about how do we bring people along? What kind of institution do we want to be? What do we want our institution to look like? All of those are key things. And so if I'm going to jump and talk about people, and then I'll talk about the principles and how important that is, you have to have 3 minimum key stakeholders to make this work. And at Lipscomb, we're really lucky that this team just kind of fell in place. You have to have some kind of senior administrator. You can't get anything done if you don't have a champion who's at that senior level who can say, we've got to do this and here's why. For us, that's our provost. She's been a fantastic partner. And she really saw this vision back a year ago and really understood that this was something that was going to affect us. And we can either embrace it thoughtfully or we could just ignore it altogether. And that's not a path that we wanted to take. You need IT. Like there's so many security concerns and there's so many important things that have to be thought about as you put this together. And so you need IT who can come alongside you. I'm really lucky to have a VP for IT here at Lipscomb who he always tells me I don't want to slow down innovation. But he can be the voice in the room that says, yeah, this is probably not the time to integrate DeepSeek, for instance. That would be one. Let's think of other things that we can do. So he can look at the risk and say, is the risk worth it or not? And then you've got to have a faculty champion. Your faculty have to come alongside you and you have to have the buy-in from them. And we've already seen a institution adopt AI without faculty input or buy-in, and it's not pretty. So you really got to make sure your faculty understand and they're on board for this and they're going to ultimately roll this out in the classroom. If you don't know who that faculty champion is, you are probably it. That's just where we are. That faculty person can come from anywhere. It doesn't have to come from necessarily your IT department. In fact, Jules White from Vanderbilt, I have a quote right here because I thought it was fantastic. He said this at a conference. The future of computing will be driven by those outside of computer science. It's your humanities people, really, are the people you should be engaging in this. The computer science people have been doing this for a while, but to roll out generative AI well, you need that humanities and that science piece that comes alongside and says, here's how we can do it while still being human centered, which is the most important thing. How do we roll this out and remain human centered? Other key stakeholders that can come along at any point in this process, but you're going to want them on your team. You're going to want leaders across the university. Your librarians are going to be huge. Faculty Senate, if you can get Faculty Senate buy-in, which we did here at Lipscomb, that helps. General counsel is going to have to be involved when you start looking at policies, at least it was for us. And there's a lot of education that had to happen because just understanding how AI works at a general level can be a big lift. But you're going to have to get that general counsel, your legal on board, and your Center for Teaching and Learning. Obviously, they're the ones that are going to help you kind of roll this out in the long run. And so you're going to need some buy-in from them. So that's your people. So let's talk about your principles. It is really important that you root this in your values. That's what's going to make your adoption unique compared to Lipscomb's adoption. And so we took the 8 main things that Lipscomb cares about and said, what does that mean for AI? So what does it mean to serve others when using AI? What does it mean to deliver my best when using AI or to even pursue joy with AI? And we kind of made guiding lights. So the first thing we did a year ago was gather a task force together, representatives from across the university. And the first task that they had was how is Lipscomb going to look at AI? And it was in that group that we said we have to root it in our values and our mission. And it has to speak to who we are. This is not, here's what we do, and here's what AI does. This is what we do as a whole. And we do it because we're led by our values and our mission. And that I keep coming back to it because it's so important. The number one mistake you're going to make if you try to integrate this is not rooting it deeply within your values and what you're doing. So that gets us to part 3. Part 3, how do we move beyond change management? So if you know anything about change management, there are so many models out there. And I would argue with you, all those models are bad for AI. So I just pulled a few because I was kind of thinking about this the other day and really putting words to what we've done. Kotter's 8-step model is a great change management model, if you know that one. but it's kind of like trying to write a textbook while breaking news is happening. AI is moving too fast for that. Lewin's model of unfreeze, change, and refreeze. Well, you're not going to refreeze anything with AI. AI is going to change so often and so quickly. You're not going to have the time to really move everything around and then refreeze it up and say, this is the way we do things again. And McKinsey's 7S framework is it builds a beautiful blueprint, but things are once again changing so quickly that it's like adding floors and changing walls everywhere on that blueprint, and it just becomes a mess. So if you can't do that, what do you do? If we can't have normal change management, what would change look like in a system that is always adapting and changing? And that's where Lipscomb, this is Sarah Gibson talking. This is not Lipscomb University talking. And I should say that I am the faculty fellow for AI, but I kind of started doing this at the university because I looked around and said, who's doing this? And I want to do this. I think it's fun. And I just invited myself to the table. So that's your faculty champion. If you're like, this is what I want to do, my institution isn't doing this, just start inviting yourself to the table. Say, I want to be involved in that conversation. And what I like to think about when we think about change management with AI is this idea of I've got to solve the gap. So identify the gap and then solve it proactively. And for me, that's three domains that I kind of look at. The top one being we got to take down obstacles. What are the obstacles to adoption for your institution? What are the emotional factors? What are the physical factors? What are the psychological factors? Talked a lot about psychological factors. Your faculty are tired. They may have a negative idea of AI. They may not completely understand AI. There's a lot of emotional grief with like grieving the fact that the educational system is broken and we have to change it. So you got to see those and solve that gap proactively. So how do I get people to come alongside me? How do I acknowledge their grief? How do I acknowledge those negative thoughts about AI? Then the second domain there on the right is you've got to build your path. So you really got to look at who your stakeholders are, what kind of plan do you want in place, and how do you take action on that plan? And I'll go step by step through how we've done that at Lipscomb and what our plan looked like. And then the last is light the way. So inspire people, like show off what people are doing at your institution with AI. That's fantastic. Show that off in a broad way where everyone has to be there. Faculty meetings are a great place to do a little 5-minute tip. Invite them, continue to invite people that want nothing to do with AI. I always tell them, like, you don't want anything to do with AI. I need you in this conversation because I need you to come in and tell me why this doesn't work. I need that critical thinking aspect. And invite those people, continue to invite them, and then model what great AI integration looks like in the classroom. So take your leaders and really elevate them within that. And I was telling them earlier before you guys came in that there is a lot here. I could probably do a master class of days. So you're getting the 30,000-foot view. And then I'm always happy to speak more with you about kind of the details of how we did this and what we rolled this out to be and what it looks like. So let's jump into this idea. And this is really your roadmap. So I've laid you the foundation for you on everything here. You need those champions. You need to think about those 5 things, the 5 Ps. You need to think about how to solve that gap. But what does that look like? And what did that look like for Lipscomb? So I like to use the Diffusions of Innovations model by Rogers. I think it's fantastic. And it kind of talks about your innovators and your early adopters and your early and late and your laggards. Here's the caveat to this model. In 2019, the Times Higher Ed published a great article about how this model doesn't work for higher education because your laggards aren't always laggards. Like what somebody who might be a laggard in one area is an innovator in another area. Also, we want those laggards. We want that critical thinking piece. That's what's so beautiful about the academy, is that we don't agree on everything and that we can have deep conversations. So I, for that, to that article, I say yes. And this is a great way to kind of see where your institution is. So how many people are already doing AI? And are they your early adopters or are they your late majority? And that kind of gives you a benchmark to see who you need to be reaching out to and kind of what's happening at your institution in a way that might not have data. We did gather data and we're about to gather our second round of data. So I'm really excited to see if our thoughts and what we think we're witnessing matches with the data, and to be continued on that one. So let's talk about what happens. There is a individual roadmap that everyone takes when adopting AI. And it's really funny because I can talk to someone that cares about AI, or that's interested in AI, and just by the words they use, I know where they are on this roadmap. It's amazing that everyone's kind of following that thing. There's the initial understanding of what AI is, and that usually is full of misunderstanding. And so you really got to think about that, and how do I get good information in front of my faculty? And then typically that goes with grief. Grief for the fact that things are changing, grief for the fact that people are going to write and acquire knowledge in new ways. And that is a key moment for you. You've got to flip that script, just like we talked about from resistant to transformative. You've got to flip it and you've got to do it in a big way. And then once you open that up, that door, and they start to see things a little bit more transformative, um, there's some kind of day of reckoning where it's like, oh my goodness, like I've been doing this wrong. I see how this is different than I understood. And there can be some fear involved in that. And you've got to figure out how to move them from, once you flip the script, to that day of reckoning. You've got to move them into curiosity pretty quickly, or it's going to spiral into negativity. And so you've got to think through that. And then that leads to I wonder if I could, and that's the most exciting part. I get emails all the time. I wonder if we can, and usually the answer is not yet, but in a month, or yes, we can do that. That's fantastic. Let's sit down and figure out how to do that. And that's when the playing starts. And I would say that's where we are at Lipscomb. And it's really fun because now everyone is in the mode of kind of thinking through things. And then that leads to integration and sharing and honing all of that. So if you've got an individual roadmap, each person is going through this process and they're in different stages of this process. Your institutional roadmap has to match your individual roadmap. So that starts with the initial task force. If you have not had a task force meeting, you need one. That's when you sit down and you say, how does this integrate into our values? What are our guiding lights? What do we want our institution with AI to look like? And that is a pivotal moment. And you need to have voices from every place on this map. You need to have your late majorities. You need to have your early adopters. You need to have some laggards in there, because that's what's going to help define what and drive the way forward in a way that involves a lot of critical thinking. So we move forward from that to some kind of AI event. You need something that's going to flip the script for everybody. For us, that was Jose Bowen, and that was teaching with AI. But I will tell you that probably flipped the script for up to the early majority. And we just had a AI 101 session last month. And the people at that event were not the people that had come to the other events, which told me, oh, like we now have those late majorities coming, like we need another AI event. And so we're planning some other things for them because they're just now ready to have the conversation. So you're kind of watching individuals and kind of moving at their pace, and offering things just in time based on where they are in that. So for faculty, once you get that AI event where you kind of flip the script and you have that grief moment, you immediately need to have the academic integrity question, because that is the number one question faculty are going to say. This is an academic integrity issue. And the answer is not really. And Jose Bowen's book does a great job of that. But we followed up that conference with an academic integrity 7-part series in the fall. And that series took people through why this wasn't AI isn't an academic integrity issue, and then how to change the way you think about academic integrity. And based on what we saw last month and the new people who are coming to our sessions, we immediately knew, okay, it's time for another AI and academic integrity issue, because those late majority are ready to have that conversation. That's an important moment. That's the chasm, like going from your early adopters to your early majority. You have to have that conversation with them. So if we move forward a little bit within that, you're going to have you're going to then follow that up with basic, just in time, personalized information. So you want to meet them where they are. And we did a AI um, tip of the week, just a 5-minute tip on how you can utilize AI in your classroom. You want it just in time, you want one-on-ones, you want some basic, because they're in that curiosity phase, and you want to give them something that will continue to cultivate that curiosity for them. And you're going to start seeing growth and spread. People are going to be sharing it with each other. It's a very exciting time. And then where we are is we've hit the third caution in this roadmap. It's universal adoption. So that's our next thing. And if you don't adopt universally, you run the risk of having some frustration. So you've really got to pay attention to balancing that. But universal adoption, once you have people along the way and it's growth and it's spreading and people are doing fun and exciting things, until they're on a platform together, you can only go so far. It's an equity issue, it's an access issue. And if you need to use it, this is what we use with our administrators. Feel free to quote this. This is the moment when everyone gets an email address. If you give an email address to 20 people to pilot it, you don't adopt email because you don't see the transformative power of it. So this is the moment when we have to switch and everyone gets that email address. And that's where we are. So we're currently in that, but we're starting to plan for what that looks like in the next month when we do adopt something universally. Okay, I love talking about this and I could go on and on forever, but I want to be respectful of your time and I'm already going over just a little bit because I want to leave time for Q&A. So I will follow this up really quickly with part 4. So this is where we are. I call it discerning innovation. You have to be proactive and not reactive. So everything prior to this has been reactive, and that's okay. That's where you're going to be for a minute. But we're a year into this, 9 months really from August when we really started to try. We didn't do a lot over the summer. We really tried to do something special. We're 9 months past that. And so we just launched this idea of discerning innovation, meaning that we're being proactive and not reactive. Yes, universal adoption means everyone gets an AI system together from the university. We're looking, to be full disclosure, we're looking at Boodlebox. That's what we're looking at. There was a California state institution that adopted ChatGTP for everybody. But universal adoption means that everyone has access to an AI system together, staff, faculty, students. So we're in this discerning innovation where we can be proactive and not reactive. And for us, that looks like 3 groups of people. The stakeholders is the IT, the administrators, who are really kind of answering questions, and they're the ones that ultimately are going to like put this in place. But we have these 2 committees, a super user group and a standing committee. So the super user groups are your innovators. They're the ones that are like they're wearing the meta glasses, walking across campus with AI. I mean, they're doing the crazy things. And those are your innovators. So you want to put them in a room together and have them meet monthly and give them a little bit of money to play around with, like let them play with some of these new systems that are coming out. Let them have access to things other people don't have access and see what they can do. And in our super user group, it's like AI book club. Okay. So 3 people come, they get to present what they're working on, they get to ask each other questions. It's iron sharpens iron. It is your high flyers, and you have to protect that group. You can't just let anyone come to that group. It is the people who are really doing this on a deep level, and they're learning from each other, but they're also the canary in the coal mine. So when they see something that they think, oh man, the university needs to think about this, they can pass that on. And for us, they pass that on to a standing committee. Standing committee is made up of one representative from every college, the library, CTL, some other academic spaces research. And then we have invited IT, marketing, to not participate, but to listen to the conversation. So listen to what faculty care about and what they're thinking about. And the standing committee is the one who's really making recommendations to the stakeholders, to the administrators. They're the ones who are coming up with the policy, best practices, all of that. They're your policy people. And so those 3 groups can inform and talk to each other. And that so the super users are your innovation, the standing committee is your discernment, and your stakeholders are really the people who say, yes, we can do this, or no, we can't. That doesn't align with what's going on, or advise the standing committee. Uh, excuse me, sorry. Advise the standing committee, like IT can say, like, that's not a good idea, standing committee. We've got to go in a different direction within that. So what's next for us? Universal adoption. You've got to have some kind of leadership appointment. It's changing too quickly, and we're probably going to get to a point where someone has to be in charge, who's like passing on information to everybody, because not everyone needs to be uh, listening to everything all the time. That's too much for your faculty. You need to insulate them and just give them the information just in time that they need, or invite them to go deeper if they so choose at this moment. We're going to develop training. We're going to share with others like you guys. And then we're probably looking at revisiting that document from a year ago and rerouting and saying, is this still where we want to be? Does this still align with our values? And then probably starting in the fall, colleges and departments need to root themselves. So when you root the university and you make a policy, you want it to be broad, because it shouldn't be too restrictive. It should be adaptable, but also it needs to give room for colleges to say, what does this look like in our area? And faculty to say, what does this look like in our classroom? And so you got to think of that trickle down. And so you don't want to be too tight at the top, but you want to give some leeway within that. Okay, so that is a super lot. I understand. It is a ton of information. Happy to follow up with you. This is my email address. And I think we've got some time for questions too. I'm assuming that Zach is still here. And I didn't know if you were coming back in or not with us, but is there any question that you have to kick us off while people put questions in the chat?
I mean, first off, Sarah, thank you so much. I mean, it's incredible. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, I'm learning something every day, and it's incredible that you guys have been doing this for 9 months to a year. It's way ahead of the curve. I mean, the first question, I guess, I mean, there's already a question in the chat.
Oh,
Can you
perfect.
explain what you mean by universal adoption?
Oh, yes, I did. I did stop for a minute and say that, but universal adoption means everybody has access to the same system. So that when you're training, you're not training where someone's on chat and someone's on Claude. You've got some kind of system that everyone is using the same, and that's your equity and your issue too as well.
I mean, I have a quick question, I guess, and
Yeah.
we've talked about this prior, but I think it's good for everyone to hear. So, how do you get those faculty to kind of start using AI that really don't like AI?
Oh, yes, that's a good point. See, like I said, we could do a week-long masterclass on this. The what I love to do, and I have students that don't want to use AI, and it takes me about an hour to get them using AI. The first thing that I do is tell them, just like I did with you guys, what do you feel? And then I'm like, that's fantastic. Like you feel however you feel. You feel threatened, mind blown. That's fantastic. That's where you need to be. Now let's acknowledge that and let's move forward. And then the next thing I do is show them how it can solve a problem super quickly. So for students, the problem I often solve is like I'm a college student, I don't have a lot of money, and I want to make sure that I can get myself a meal, plan out my meal for me, and then I immediately go remove dairy and meat, and they're just like stunned. For faculty, it's usually pulling in information and writing an email using information off your website. But if you can solve a problem for them super quickly, they immediately start to understand the power of AI.
Yeah, one thing I do want to say is, I mean, you can answer the question that's in the chat, but feel free to raise your hand and come off mute. We can
Yeah,
do that now,
be
so
fun.
feel free to ask as many questions as you would like, but you can answer this one.
Okay, how much funding did your AI initiative have? Yeah, donors, IT budget. We're still working through that. And what we are looking at adopting is Boodlebox, Grammarly authorship, and then something for recruiting that doesn't have anything to do with AI for academics. It's completely recruiting. The budget is going to be an issue, but I will tell you that Boodlebox is about as best as you can get. They're not paying me to say this. As far as I've looked at a lot of things, it's about the best that you can for your price range, and it's a month-to-month contract, which is unheard of in education. And so what we're looking at is just how we do that. And I think we're going to fund it in our current budget. And I think they were also talking about maybe putting uh, um, changing some of the fee structures for the students. But most of the faculty departments were like, I'd pay for it out of my own budget. Because you're looking at, you might fact check me on this, Zach, but I feel like it's about 120 per user, like worst case scenario. There's a lot of different ways to do it funding wise. But when you start to tell faculty, hey, you can have AI for about $120 a year, it's almost a no brainer in that.
Yeah, just to kind of touch on that, I mean, it's about if you adopt it site wide, where it's like the whole university buys it for 1 year, it's $4 a month per person, so about $48 a year. And then the user base is what you're talking about, and it's
Yeah.
about quick math, $96 a year if they were to use it every single month.
And every institution has budget issues. We're not alone in that. But when you're like, hey, we're going to do this, I just can't find anything better on the market. Um, I'm glad you encourage students to use AI to brainstorm with keywords. That's fantastic. That's very good. Oh, security concerns. Yeah. So if you are using anything free, I would stop right now immediately. And I told my faculty that, and they all turned off everything free. I would not. You don't want systems to train on your data. That's 100%. So if you're paying for it, you can go into the settings. It's hard to do on some of them and have it stop training on your data. But Boodlebox is actually takes care of all of that for you, and our IT and our legal have signed off on some of our most sensitive data going in Boodlebox if we adopt at that point. They feel very comfortable. And Boodlebox has been great about meeting with you and going through those documents with the people who would actually understand them a little bit more in detail than I would. Um, and I mean, you could go build your own system, but that's something that I think most of us can't do at our small institutions. Um, Yeah, are they open to letting you have a sandbox to play in? Well, that's Zach. Zach is great. They're all great. I mean, the Boodlebox people are so much fun to talk to, and they're very, very, very helpful. Yeah, um, and they've been very helpful with us.
I mean, I can ask another question.
Yeah,
So how did you like you said that you kind of just made it happen, right? You were the AI person at your school and you just stepped into that role. Sorry for
I
the
just
hiccup.
kept
How'd
inviting
you do it?
myself to the table. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
What was your question, Zach?
Like
Follow.
how do you do that? It's
Yeah,
exhausting, I'm assuming. Yeah.
I think if it is something that you care about, you just start being a little like a pest. I mean, in a polite, kind way. I basically looked around and we had the task force. I mean, you've got to get the administration to be on board for a task force. And then that task force needs to be transparent and open and share what the results of that were. I've heard some institutions where that task force didn't share the results, and that's a little scary to me. So once you get past that, the great thing is that I just looked around and I was like, man, they made recommendations. Who's doing those recommendations? Nobody. So I was like, I actually have a passion for this. I would love to do this. And I just went to the CTL. I said, can I offer a few AI sessions? I think people would like them. And then anytime AI was being discussed, I said, can I be at that meeting? And then I'm the one who actually wrote the original proposal for Boodlebox for Lipscomb and said, this is something we need to do because I found it. And I had a meeting with Zach and I was like, I've got to tell people about this. And nobody was really aware of it at that time. So yeah. I mean, I think you need what's really exciting is that this is a growing area. It's going to be a new industry. It's going to be a new research area. And so there are no limitations for any of us. Any of us from any discipline can step into this and just start working in AI. And that to me is super exciting and it's interdisciplinary and it's a great group of people online. AI and humanities living together, there's just so much out there. Rachel, I have to pull some stuff. I know you, so I'll have to pull some stuff for you specifically and send it to you. If you're looking for like articles, I don't have any off the top of my head. But to me, the humanities answers the AI question. I mean, the question is how do we exist in a world of AI and still keep our human element and be human centered? Oh, that's great. AI and faith. I'll have to look at that one, Scott. That's good. Um, the and the humanities answers that. So to me, it's baffling that universities are getting rid of the humanities when we need them to answer AI. And we're at Lipscomb actually doubling down on our liberal arts because we know that it's going to answer these questions. Yeah, the book recommendations, Teaching with AI by Jose Bowen. And then the one that I think is about AI but not about AI is Hope Circuits by Jessica Rydell. And it's fantastic. Thanks, Rachel. It's good to see you in there. It's good to have friends and people that I know who don't work with us anymore, who are at other institutions blessing them. That's fantastic. Um, AI and Writing by Sydney Dobrin. That's good. I'll have to look at that. I found a lot of the AI books are just too high, and I mean, they're too theoretical. And teaching with AI is very accessible. It's a fantastic. I'm always a little puzzled when someone hasn't come across it yet. It's a fantastic go-to.
I have one more question, Sarah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think one thing that you talked about a lot is like the struggles, right? This is how you get like what is the payoff? Like what have you seen that's been like
Oh,
exciting for you off of this?
the payoff is so worth the struggle. So Hope Circuits is a great book because it talks about pushing against systems and how the systems recoil in your face and how that is depressing. But you get up every day because we believe in the transformative power of education. That's why we do this every single day. And so you got to keep pushing against that system. So it is hard and it is hard work, but the payoff is when you have someone who said, I will never use AI, a faculty member who all of a sudden said, oh my goodness, this is like when we all got computers and this is fantastic. And then in a faculty meeting, when someone says we shouldn't be using AI, that person stands up and says, no, you should rethink it. We should. And here's why. And here's how I came to my belief is super, super exciting. Also, I had a student who 3 weeks ago had never touched AI. I gave her Boodlebox. I gave her a 30-minute tutorial. I just didn't have time to spend with her. She came back and she's building so many bots. It's not even crazy. I mean, it's not even funny. She's building bots for friends to build their own bots to, and like she is so into it. And when you see the passion ignite, or you see a faculty member who's thinking about how to change and transform their classroom, or you see how it pays off in individualized education, and how someone comes and says, I hate SMART goals, but I used AI for my SMART goals using your prompt, and it made me think about my SMART goals deeper than I've ever thought about them before. Like, that's what's worth it. It changes the way that we approach things, but it also invites us into a new space of learning. And when people get that, it's worth everything. Like, I'll keep coming back and pushing all day long. You do need to
Well,
learn how to make bots. Yes. And it's super easy. It's so fun.
use the bot builder. That's what I always say.
Yep.
Sarah, thank you so much. You inspire everyone here at Boodlebox and those around you every single day.
Yes, thank you. And I put my email in the chat. Happy to email with anybody, and talk more about this. And like I said, this was like the big picture, but happy to like drill down into any of the other things that you guys would like to know about.